Janelle. Ryan, how are you today?
I'm good. And it's wonderful. It's so funny because we're talking about shirts and things like that. And I was thinking to myself, I should have worn my Superman shirt underneath here because I feel like today is about us being superheroes because we want to save people from
Yeah.
being a victim of the things that are going on with fraud and especially in the financial. And I saw a stat that said Canadians lost more than $700 million last year alone when it
Well,
comes to cyber fraud in the financial. And we will go through some of the things here today, but I would say those are simply only tackling the things that are reported
mhm,
and the things that go unreported because people are embarrassed about being caught up in that.
yeah,
And you'll be surprised how often this happens with a lot of people. And again, our podcast is about awareness, about education, and I think it's really important that people know to take some of these steps so the proper authorities can start going after the people that are causing this heartache to millions of Canadians and causing a huge financial loss and costing their
mhm.
retirements and goal saving. And that's what we're here to do is help people attain their goals. So with that being said, so
Yep. So, episode title: Protect Your Finances, Top Fraud Prevention Tips. So, we're going to talk about the different types of frauds that we're seeing that are out there, and some of the tips on how you can protect yourself from some of these frauds. And like you said, Ryan, I mean, I wouldn't quite say we're superheroes at this point, but we are trying to help people understand or recognize potential fraud,
yeah.
so they can avoid dealing with some very serious financial setbacks as a result of some of these frauds as well.
Mhm.
So maybe we can start off with Ryan with what is fraud and what's the impact of fraud. So what type of fraud are we talking about here today?
Well, I think for the most part, we're talking mostly about financial fraud as a whole, and again, there's certain areas that we can talk about too when it comes to fraud. Like identity theft is part of that, and that is something that people sharing their information, their securities fraud within the investment world, insurance fraud. I don't know if we're necessarily tackling that, but again, as we tell many of our clients, be open and clear about filling out the questionnaires. Tax fraud and mortgage fraud, again, those are things that we're probably staying away with today. But again, some of these things may come up along today. But
Yeah,
it's really fraud is the intentional act of deceiving somebody, right? And
correct.
really, it's essentially causing a victim mentality and really the falsification or withholding of information and fine. And that's where in today's world of online and fake phone calls and things like that, I think that's where we're going to really tackle a lot of helping people prevent and be just aware of some of the things that are going on there. And again, this is ever evolving because one
Mhm.
point in time it was just simply somebody showing up at your doorstep, but now
Yeah.
it's you know the great Prince of Jordan selling stocks and some sort of investment or clients. This one I heard recently too. Clients, with the use of AI, people hearing the voice of what they think is a family member
Yeah.
asking for money and then
Yeah.
providing that information. So again, as we go through today, of just being able to ask more questions, and I'm sure both of us will share stories of things that we've
Yeah.
heard from clients and how we've helped prevent this from happening to clients. So
Yeah, for sure. And it is definitely evolving. It's definitely becoming a lot more sophisticated. AI is a game changer for some of these scammers as well. But there is the old, saying of if it sounds too good to be true, probably is. So I think we kind of still have to walk into or use that mindset in a lot of these situations. So let's start tackling the top 10 ways to reduce fraud risk and the different types of fraud. So the first one I'm going to talk about, or we're going to talk about, is imposter scams. So maybe you can explain, Ryan, what is an imposter scam?
um, Obviously, imposter scam is somebody pretending to be somebody that they are not,
Yeah.
and it shows up in many different ways. Again, I'm sure somebody's received a phone call. There's lots of great, funny videos of people starting to tackle imposters when it comes to the online stuff. You know, um, so obviously, receiving phone calls, receiving some sort of spam or emails that are coming your way that are they're asking for you to provide information and verify your information within that. Um, you know, CRA. I know I've made phone calls and stuff like that, and it's just like for me, as I tell PIN clients, ask for a phone number or verify a phone number online to make sure that you're calling the right number versus a fake number.
Yeah.
And again, contacting that organization, whatever it is, whether it's the advisor or a bank or CRA for that matter, making sure that you have the right contact information on file so you can go and verify that and be able to talk to somebody without it being a problem. So
Yeah, and on that point, so a couple of things. I do find that from an imposter scam point of view, typically it's the seniors that really fall for these. Part of it is because when they grew up, they come from a generation of trusting and authority. So when they hear it's the CRA calling, or they hear it's the bank calling, or it's the police calling, there is a level of respect for that authority, and they do panic and respond where if the person's saying they're from the CRA, they must be from the CRA. So I better act on what they're claiming the issue is, right? So I do find that it's usually seniors that do tend to fall for these imposter scams. Going back to your point about making sure you have the correct contact number, one of the things that these scammers do is you'll receive a text message or an email, and then they'll say, if you have any questions, call this number. So don't call the number, right, that you received in the text or the email. Do your own search and then contact the number through the website, right? Because a lot of times they're going to ask you to call a number that's directing you directly to the scammer,
yeah,
and you think you're calling that institution or that government department, and you're not. You're speaking with a scammer on the line, right?
yeah. The thing I would add to on top of either providing numbers, they have a very quick link, and often through text. It was always via email before, but now it's becoming part of text messages too, which is just click this link, and that link itself will take you on a world of hurt,
Yeah,
the winter wonderland. So be
yeah,
careful that you're not touching those types of things. And again, we're working with you and all the group and the partners. I'm always like, is this real? Looking at the email address that it's
yeah,
coming from, getting that secondary opinion, taking a screenshot of it and sharing with each other, just to
yeah,
like make sure that we're verifying the stuff that we're getting from the outside world. And
yeah,
I don't have a lot of outside world emails that come my way, but I'm
yeah.
sure lots of people do. So yeah,
Yeah, and one of the things that'll happen too is, for example, you might receive an imposter scam, and they may say it's the credit card company calling,
yeah,
and they'll ask you to verify your credit card information by you giving them your credit card information. Well, they should already have that.
yeah,
So if you're receiving a phone call from the credit card company, they're asking for you to give them the account number, and the reason why they're calling you is because of some potential questionable charges on your credit card. Don't provide them with that information. Ask them to read out what they have on file. Chances are they're going to hang up because they don't have your information. They're trying to gather that from you.
yeah.
An example of another imposter scam actually happened to my nephew a couple of years ago. And it wasn't actually my nephew, it was his grandfather. So my brother-in-law's dad. My sister and my brother-in-law were away on a trip in Italy to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary, and all of a sudden, my nephew's grandfather received a phone call from the police,
Mm,
and they put the nephew on the line, and it sounded just like my nephew,
mm,
basically saying that he was in jail and he needed to send money to get him out of jail. Um, he almost fell for the scam because the nephew I'm referring to, and sorry, you're going to hate me, I'm not going to say your name, but going in jail wasn't really, unrealistic. It could be believable with this one particular nephew. He's a good kid. He doesn't do anything bad. But anyways, the good thing is, because the police officer apparently wanted him to meet at like a parking lot at a Tim Horton somewhere to exchange the funds, right? So he kind of thought that was odd. So he actually called the local police department because when he was on the phone with the scammer, he's like, "Well, let's just meet at the local division." And he's like, "No, no, no, we don't want to meet there. We want to meet at a parking lot of Tim Hortons." So he did call the local police division, and there's no one by that name in custody, and it sounds like it's a scam. So, but right away he panicked because he knew that his son and daughter-in-law were outside of the country. He's hearing that his grandson is arrested and potentially in jail. So his knee-jerk reaction was, "Oh my God, I need to help him." But then, thankfully, he thought it through and realized it was a potential scam. So no funds exchange hands in that situation. And my nephew was never in jail and never would go to jail. So we'll clear him as well.
A couple things I was going to add to that is one, my uncle, who's a former police officer, always says that when it comes to any of this stuff, if in doubt, ask to meet the local precinct, and that will weed out a lot of people. Um, and and that is very true when it comes to like buying things online. If you're ever not comfortable, going back to even to the social media piece, which is a huge thing. And again, it talks about personal information. The amount of people that are scouring Facebook and Instagram on the next time you're on vacation. And I know we all want to share our great experiences, but please do not share the experience while you're on vacation, and share after you've got home, because the amount of break-ins that happen because of that, because it's so easy to track where you are in open homes. It's just again, one of those added, share personal information only with those that you want to share that personal information with, and that when you go on vacation, again, and those experiences, you share them afterwards, not while you're still currently in some other country enjoying some hopefully sunshine. So anyway,
I'm guilty of that. I am guilty of that, and I have to be better at that for sure. Yeah, and then finally, before we move on to the next one, is I worked in the credit card Visa department for one of the banks that I worked with years ago, and we could never ask for a person's password, nor did we ever have it on file anywhere. Right. So again, if you're receiving a phone call from the bank and they're asking you to read out the password,
yeah,
that's potentially a scam because we never had it recorded anywhere on file. Okay, so just be careful with that. The next one is secure your personal information. There's really different ways you can do this. The old way was safety deposit box, right? Which was great until you passed away. Sometimes that was a bit of an issue. Other people would have a home safe, but a lot of the ones that you buy at your local retail store, someone who has the tools can most likely get through those, but it's just making it harder for them. We used to actually suggest with our insurance policies to place them in your freezer because typically they were fireproof, right? So it wouldn't necessarily, well, I don't think a thief would look in your freezer for documents, but it's another area.
Cold hard cash only.
Literally, yeah. But another way now, obviously, is electronic, right? Is storing documents electronically. And there is a concern with that because hackers can still hack. But if you're dealing with some reputable companies that provide some of these services, encrypted services, again, they're bank grade protection, and they're very difficult to access that information. So really what I would say is, and here's one of the things that we do, Ryan, within our team, we encourage our clients or discourage our clients from sharing personal information through email because that's easily intercepted. Usually we provide an upload link, a download link, password protected as well. So that's one of the important things is secure your personal information.
Yeah. As much as a pain in the butt some of them can be, I can't stand some of the multi-factor or
Yes.
MFA multi-factor authentication because especially when I move from one cell phone to the next, and it doesn't quite transfer, which I'm still dealing with to this day after 3 months. But yeah, it's things to consider is like the length of your password. Um, I think the ultimate number is 26. I couldn't think of. I think password 123 is still sufficient enough. So
No, don't do that. I was just gonna say, not password, not 1234, not
there are
0000, right?
there are so many people out there that still use that as their password. So again, as a jokingly say, please make
Yeah.
sure that you're changing those passwords. And there's a diagram that I saw somewhere that talked about how long it would take for somebody to break a 4-letter password, which is
Yeah.
a matter of like I think it was like 7 seconds or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But a 26-word password using a mixture of numbers, letters, and unique letters would be something like a million years or something crazy. So
Yeah.
please make sure that you're changing your passwords and that you don't have them on a bunch of post-it notes sticking on your fridge for people to
Yeah.
use. So
Or if you have a credit card, don't write down the PIN of that credit card or bank card and keep it in your wallet or purse,
yeah,
because whoever steals your wallet or purse, they're going to find the PIN as well, and they're going to clean you out, right?
yeah,
And you're right. The multi-factor authentication is such a pain. But I have to say, there have been times where I've all of a sudden received notification, and I'm like, that's not me, right? So I was able to block anyone from attempting to break into my social media accounts or bank accounts or whatever else. So really important to use strong passwords, multi-factor authentication. If your device has fingerprint recognition or face recognition, use those, right? Because again, it'll be harder to break in as well. And wipe down your phone once in a while, the screen, because if you're constantly putting in a pin, you can see the fingerprints.
the
And
repetitiveness. Yeah,
yeah, and finally, another area where people forget to change their password is when they get a Wi-Fi router and install a wireless network in their home. And I know there was a report a couple of years ago that I saw on one of the Canadian local news stations where there was literally individuals who would drive around neighborhoods.
yep,
They would find these Wi-Fi networks, and a lot of them would be defaulted at 1, 2, 3, 4 or admin 1 or whatever it was, and they would find that, log in, and then they would start doing other criminal activity on which is connected to the person's Wi-Fi router, right?
yeah,
Some of them extreme, like pedophiles, were literally downloading illegal videos,
yep.
right? And then the police were like knocking on the person's door, basically accusing them, excuse me, of being the ones downloading, and it wasn't them.
Yeah. There are a lot of great password managers out there that you can use as apps and stuff. Again, be careful as to those. And you're jumping into the network thing, which I know will be something we talk about later, but might as well just jump straight into it right now. Um, Again, it's very important to make sure, and for those people who run Airbnbs and having separate networks set up, so your guests are using separate networks. And when it comes to secure networks, we've all been at certain coffee shops. We've all been taking the public transit. Everybody's been to the library. Some of us have been to the library, and you're using these open networks. It's very important that you're not using any of those networks, especially when it comes to using personal financial information,
Yeah,
because those are networks that are easily being used to be
yeah,
hacked, are easily readable by anybody who has any partial understanding about what it's like and how easy it is to
yeah.
start gathering somebody's information. Again, we're scratching the surface on a lot of this stuff. Maybe I
Mhm.
just watched too many James Bond movies, John
Right.
Wick, and all those movies about how easy it is to hack, and it really is for a lot of this stuff for two people. And again, Canada is not in a position like many other countries are, but we're quickly catching up to a lot of scams that are happening.
Yeah.
Hence why we're starting to have this conversation, and just making sure that ultimately you're creating your own secure network and that you're not using open networks to feed off of free Wi-Fi. It was cool back in
Yeah.
the day to use other people's Wi-Fi, your neighbors,
Yeah.
stuff like that was open, but now is no longer the time to use that. So, with that being said, I would say phishing scams are a big one that are.
Well, before we do that, I just want to pause it for 1 second. So, one way to avoid, again, using those open networks is a couple of ways. You can hotspot your phone. So, if you have a cell
Yep.
phone, you're better off hotspotting and using that connection. It doesn't mean that they can't tap into it. It's just that much harder, right? Or for me, I actually have a Windows tablet that has built-in mobile internet, right? So whenever I'm out in public, I always connect using my own connection as
Yep.
opposed to Wi-Fi, because we have client data on our devices, we have banking data, and so we want to make sure that we don't log into any of those public networks. So phishing scams. This is one that I deal with one too many times with clients. I don't know how many times I'll receive an email from a client where they'll say, um, "Hey, I just read this article in the Toronto Star," as an example,
Mm.
and Doug Ford just approved some kind of Bitcoin thing, and it sounds like it's something that we should be doing. And because he's approved it, there's a whole article on it. I think it's a really good idea. What do you think? And I always ask them, please forward me what you're reading.
Yeah.
And every single time, so when it comes from some kind of celebrity or
Oh,
government official, every single time,
Ryan Reynolds and Michael Bublé are like
yeah,
hot on the list right now when it comes to like,
yeah,
oh, trust these guys because they're trusted Canadians and
yeah,
reliable, so it
yeah.
must be good. So yeah.
So the first thing I do is I actually hover over the Toronto Star, if that's the article they're referring to, logo in the email, and usually it's not clickable. And what I will say is, if it's an article from the Toronto Star, the Sun, or any of the major news outlets, that logo is going to be a clickable logo, and it'll take them to their website. So if you click that and it takes you anywhere else, first of all, you shouldn't click it if it is clickable. But if you hover over it, you can see what the actual address is,
Addresses. Yeah.
right? And if it's not clickable at all, that's a first indication right there. It's probably a scam, right? And then I'll read the article, and I can hover over the link that they're suggesting that you should click. And again, I can read the address, and right away I respond to clients, this is a scam, this is a phishing scam. So just delete it and don't bother with it. And again, repeatedly, I keep getting these emails from clients asking me if it's legit. So first of
Yeah.
all, if it sounds too good to be true, probably is.
Yeah.
But secondly, there's some methods that you can use to protect yourself to see if it is legit. Third, just go on a separate web browser, do a Google search, and do a search on that article.
Yep.
And a lot of times you'll actually see scam, 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 right?
Yeah. So again, my aunt who is formerly in the world of banking informed me about something else because I was talking about this scam and phishing and stuff like that. And there's an article, I guess, about banks and uh, having posting promotional, you know, 6.5% interest rates
Right.
as their marketing. And again, a lot of them are paid scamming.
Mm.
And I guess there's an article right now of somebody who lost, I want to say $70,000 because they were promising a GIC rate, because I know how some people love their GICs.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, they look at that and they go, that's a great rate. I want to click on it. So they click on it and
Hmm.
it takes them, and the person was scammed out of a significant amount of money
Yeah.
for GICs,
Yeah.
and making sure one, there's a time and a place for GICs, but at the same time that again every marketing advertisement that comes up on your screen is an algorithm that is very easily paid by a scammer for
Yeah.
$39.99 a month. They can put out a bunch of advertisement to make sure that
Yeah.
that they're able to capture people that are looking for that information. So
Yeah.
be very cautious as to some of the information that, as you said, if it's too good to be true, you know, best to make us part of your top 5 list is ultimately what it comes down to. Is help
Yeah.
us help you.
That's what we're here for, right? I mean, it's not just about investment recommendations, insurance recommendations, and creating a retirement plan. These are some of the value-added services that we do offer. So just reach out to us, right? It's a touch point. We'd be more than happy to help you. I mean, in that situation, Ryan, I've had clients literally on a phone call or in a meeting where they're telling me about this great GIC offer. The first thing I do is I open up a separate web browser. I go to that institution's website and I look up at their rates,
Yeah.
right? And I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, they're nowhere close to what this great offer is, right?
Yeah.
So then I'll encourage the client, here's the phone number from that institution's website, give them a call, ask them if this is legit, right?
Yeah.
And again, 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, no, that's not from them, right?
Yeah.
So these are just simple things you could do, but if you need help with it, we're here to help, right? Because last thing we want is for people to be wiped out of their finances.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing we talk about is monitor your financial accounts on a regular basis, right? This is a big one. I do use third-party credit report firms, and I know some people are for and against them because a lot of times they are free, but they make their revenues from advertising and they're offering all these offers. But you do receive a notification. I have, right? If there is a hit on your credit bureau, it'll say, "Hey, there was a recent inquiry on your credit bureau. Is this you?" Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's like, yeah, I applied for whatever it was, and I know that it's me. But at least it provides you with that level of information, right?
Yeah. Jim, you're applying for a Ferrari again, aren't you? Financing for a
Yeah,
Ferrari.
I keep getting declined.
Good
Not by
Italian.
these. Yeah, it's my wife declining me, not the banks.
Yeah,
Actually, to her credit, she never said no to me. So
yeah, and again, we've talked about this before. Whether it's our cash flow program, it's about awareness. It's about regular reviews of these things and making sure that your hard-earned dollars are being spent the way that you intended them to be, and that you're doing regular reviews. As I mentioned on a podcast couple episodes ago, which is, I do mine twice a year, and now because of an error with a certain streaming company, that I've made sure that I do it more quarterly,
yeah,
and monthly is even better if you have the time. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yep. The next one is stay informed about investment scams. So read some of the news articles. They'll pop up to say, "Hey, here's an investment scam." I have seen, I watch the news usually every evening, and if there is a known investment scam, typically they will report it there. So just stay informed. Try to research to see what's out there. And again, if you receive a text message, like I don't know how many 407 ETR messages I get or CRA that I'm owed a whole bunch of money from them, and like I know that's too good to be true. Um, so right away I know it's like, yeah. And look for things like for example, you can see in there if it's, if you're getting an email from someone that it looks official, and then you hover over the email address and it's a Gmail account, scam, right? If you look at the website or the link and it's 407 dot whatever ETR, well, it's a scam, right? They do a really good job of making it look like very close to what it should be, but usually it's one off by like one letter or whatever, right?
well,
One character.
well, you were saying the letter, and
Yeah,
somebody from the security network had told me, look at the A. The A is one of those key things of like Hotmail, and there's the A within it. And if the A is like a certain squiggly and doesn't look like your normal A, that in
yeah,
itself will, and it's just taking those quarter of a second to just be like, is this real? And saves you a life of heartache. So
Digital devices. I mean, most people have one. It's amazing how many people don't have a PIN to access it, or again, face recognition, or was it iris recognition with your eyes, right? So that's the first thing you should do when you get a new device and it asks you, do you want this level of security? Yes, you do, and set it up with that level of security, because all you have to do is forget your device somewhere, or someone, you're at a restaurant, someone kind of is able to collect it while you're not even paying attention, trying to go in, look at your banking, whatever else. Just protect it, right? Don't keep it unlocked, and don't have it unlocked for an extended period of time, right? So some people will have it there like for 30 minutes, it's unlocked. I wouldn't do that. I would keep it at a shorter interval, and I know it's a pain, but it's to protect yourself. We talked about secure networks, right? Using secure networks. Sign up for alerts. This is also a big one, Ryan. I mean, a lot of credit card and bank account apps now offer alerts. So every single time I put a charge on my credit card, I get an alert saying, "Hey, this is the charge that just went through. Was this you?" Right? So I think that's something that people should do, and it's fairly simple and straightforward. And you can also set up those alerts, like you said, multi-factor authentication. Your social media accounts, many of them will have alert or an alert option, so it'll let you know, hey, is this you signing in on your Facebook account in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia? Yeah, no, I'm nowhere near Atlanta, Georgia. That's not me. So decline. All right. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, it's normally me buying $100 worth of pepperoni for pizzas. So I know those alerts are real and true. So
it would be if that was happening to me as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, know your spending habits, and know who has access to your vehicle, your e-documents. And I know as far as there's a great conversation happening with allowing parents access to their kids' credit cards, and allowing them to build up their credit scores and stuff. And again, that's open communication between you and your kids to say, hey, where are your spending habits at, and how can we make sure that you're buying the right things, and were you in need of this? And again, great conversations to have. Again, visit our podcast talking about financial literacy with kids. So
and finally, educate yourself and also educate others of these scams, right? So do your research. I've had someone really close to me who was defrauded some significant amount of money. It was a Bitcoin scam. And if all they had done was talk to me about this great opportunity, I would have been able to, in seconds, let them know this is a scam. Unfortunately, they didn't talk about it. They kept it to themselves, and they ended up losing a lot of money and added a whole lot of stress in their situation. So educate yourself, talk to others about it. If something comes across and you're kind of thinking, hey, this sounds fantastic, maybe I should just ask a friend of mine that I trust about it, or advisor, right? Just make that phone call, make that connection.
That's why people are listening to this podcast right now, because they want to educate themselves on the day-to-day stuff that is going on in the world. But the biggest investment that you can make is on yourself, and making sure that you're educated in different areas. And when it's surpassing your ability, bring in great people onto your team to be able to inform you. So
for sure.
So
what should people do if they actually are a victim of fraud?
Well, again, I said this at the beginning, the amount of money that Canadians have lost in 2024, and I think it said it went up 15% year over year. So obviously it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem for us. But the most important thing is that you take the time to report this stuff. Monitoring your statements is obviously a big thing we just talked about. Being able to collect the evidence of the things that have happened to you recently. For me, it's like, hey, my body's having a reaction to my joint hurts. Why is that? What did I eat over the last 24 hours? And taking in that, kind of collecting the evidence of what could have caused that, is all important. Obviously, you talked about it when it comes to financial institutions. If you're going away, it's really important to call them and make them aware that you're going away. That way, if you're taking a trip to some sunny destination, you're suddenly not cut off from all the wonders, but at the same time that your financial institutions know where you're currently at. And contacting local police with all the information of if it has happened to you, that is so important that you report it sooner than later, because they can then start doing kind of their steps as far as the process when it comes to the Canadian anti-fraud, and making sure that they're collecting that data, because you're likely not the only person, right? And that's really important that people should take away from today's episode, is that you're not the first person, you won't be the last person. So know that by reporting it can help the next individual, and also by reporting it could potentially very much help you in making sure that you're recovering some of, or all of what may have happened to you. But again, the people that are doing this are becoming more and more creative, and the more that the police or whatever agency is tracking this information can help make a case to ensure that it's not happening to more and more people, and shut it down, really. So that's the ultimate goal. So
while you were speaking, I kind of remembered two other types of frauds and scams and how you potentially can protect yourself. So they're more specific to, for example, mortgage fraud, right? We've heard the stories of retired individuals who had their home paid off. They go away, they come back, and their house was sold underneath them somehow, right? And I know our partner Sonia at TVH Legal, one of the things that she recommends to clients who have paid off their homes is to have registered like a home equity line of credit, even for $50,000. And it doesn't really cost you anything. You don't have to use the line of credit, but because it's registered on title, for someone to try to again sell your home, they would have to discharge that home equity line of credit. So it's just an additional layer or barrier for someone, protection for you. So for those of you out there, if you have parents, if you're listening to this, and again they've paid off their homes and there's no debt on it, one of the things you can do to protect them is just to register a HELOC on it. Small HELOC, that's it. It's registered on title, and it's just one extra barrier for the potential fraudsters. Another one, and I know I've referenced this individual a few times in our podcasts, and so far I haven't gotten any hate comments on it. Dr. Phil, he's done some shows about the Nigerian scammers, right? The catfishing.
Yeah.
One of the questions that they've asked these catfishers, because a lot of times the communication, the grammar is horrible.
Yeah.
Right. So when they claim to be the prince of whatever, right, and their grammar is just horrible, and they'll ask the scammers, like, is this intentional? And many of them say it actually is intentional. And the reason why is because they said if the person they're catfishing kind of glosses over the grammar part of it, then they're a perfect victim. Right, because they're looking past some obvious red flags that most people would look at and say, this doesn't make sense, the grammar's horrible, right? So that's another thing that the scammers will do. So if you receive some form of messaging and the grammar's horrible, don't gloss over that. Pay attention, because they're doing that intentionally, because they'll know that if you don't make that a red flag for yourself, you're hooked. Right there, you'll be easily hooked. So now I'm going to start receiving hate messages about Dr. Phil and me watching him. But anyways,
well, you talked about like identifying scams, and that's a big one, and we've kind of sprinkled a little bit of idea of different things that have happened for a lot of clients. And again, people will share within our comments of things that they've been scammed for. of how they overcame and identified them.
Yeah.
We welcome people to be able to share as a community things to help prevent it from happening to the next person.
Yeah.
Um, I, it would have been an idea if we had next time. We'll have somebody from the Canadian Securities or
Yeah.
Canadian Anti-Fraud Center to be able to support and help people identify. I know,
Yeah.
you had talked to one of our clients who works within the security industry and cybersecurity and making sure that we're doing the right things uh, for all clients when it comes to like sharing, whether it's sharing information or identifying scams.
Yeah.
And again, we're constantly reviewing for ourselves, especially with the information that we have. We're constantly reviewing like our day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
But it's clients that are the ones that are kind of the first wave that need to be very aware of what is happening and what is
Hmm.
potentially a scam for themselves.
Yeah.
And I will continue to say this. I like being part of people's top 5 lists.
Yeah.
Just had a conversation with a client today that loves that I'm part of their top 5 list.
Yeah.
And then I had another conversation yesterday with a client that was reminded how important it is to just make me part of the top because of the stress that some
Yeah.
things cause them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm here to support. How can I help? Right.
Yeah.
So, how can we as our TVH group team help support you in making sure we take off the stress?
Yeah.
And when it comes to anything that is potentially a scam, that you get that tingly bat sense in your belly,
Yeah.
um, by all means, give us a call. Let's have a
Yeah.
chat, right? So 5
Yeah.
minutes, a 5 minute conversation with us can, avoid really months and months of heartache and uncertainty. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Stolen fun, prevent stolen funds, ruining your credit bureau. Like there's so many things, right? By just having a quick conversation with us, we can help them avoid all that.
and it just reminded me. So this has happened twice in my time as an advisor, and there's this. So this is what happens: is that clients call me and say they want to withdraw an X amount of dollars,
Right.
right? And it's your money. Do what you want with your money. But
Yeah.
I feel like in those situations, when it comes, because I like to know what's going
Yeah.
on and how people are doing. And within those two conversations, to understand that, hey, oh, you're going on a vacation. That's amazing. You
Yeah.
know, you know, being able to transfer the funds. How does it adjust your goal? Or hey, congratulations, we achieved one of the goals that we set out like over the
Hmm.
last few months. What I found is that the people that specifically do with certain institutions, they don't get asked that question.
Right.
Here's the money,
Yeah.
right? And on the second one in particular, it was a situation in which was a scamming person that was
Right.
pretending to be a cousin
Right.
that was asking for $12,000,
Right.
right? And had I not asked those questions of that client,
Mhm.
that person would have been out $12,000. Now it's not a lot of money for some, but it can be a huge difference for
Yeah.
others, especially as you mentioned, a lot of retired clients often get scamming phone calls.
Yeah.
I would say to add to back to our fraud, in case people weren't aware too, when you pass away, your will becomes public and it doesn't
Yep.
cost a whole lot. Those clients that are now new widows are
Hmm.
high targets. So when it comes to making us part of your top 5 list,
Hmm.
uh, assigning somebody that is a trusted contact,
Yeah.
somebody that can speak on your behalf, um, putting it in part of your will too, as making
Hmm.
sure that you have a power of attorney. There's
Yeah.
all these things of roadblocks that I find that although might be a small inconvenience to call and talk to me, but
Yeah.
again, I haven't had any complaints yet to have a quick conversation with me.
Yeah.
But I've prevented a lot of money from going out the door
Yeah.
simply because I've asked that question. And I would challenge every advisor and every institution. If you aren't having these conversations with clients on a regular basis, especially when they want to withdraw a large sum of money, as to what their plans are with it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've talked to Sonia. Sonia has the same conversation with her clients. I know John has those conversations. Same with Dave. Is like, what are the plans with that money? And it's just simply asking, what are the plans, and making sure that it's achieving your goal, and at the same time protecting all of your goals and what your intentions are with that money. So, with that being said, as I think I've said that many times, I believe it's a very big step for a lot of clients to make sure that when you have a great advisor like ourselves that are very interested in making sure that you attain your goals, that they're going to help prevent some of this heartache that we've talked about today from happening, and just asking the right questions. So
and going back to the estate claim, I did have a situation 15 years ago. A client of mine, single child, mom passed away, and she was going to inherit a lot of money. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, someone made a claim that basically said that they were a relative, a long lost relative. Now, ultimately, the claim wasn't justified. It did delay things by over 3 or 4 months from being distributed, just because they had to verify this individual and the right to the claim, whatever else, and it didn't go anywhere. But that's where, again, some of the estate planning benefits that we provide with placing money in certain contracts that help avoid creating an estate. I just had that recently where a client, as mom passed away, we place the bulk of the funds into a segregated fund, cashable GIC, and guess what? Mom passed away. There's no estate, no claim, nothing. It's clean. So those are some strategies that we can implement. So we're going to start shutting things down, Ryan. So if clients do have any questions, or if anyone has any questions, they'd want to know more about how they can help themselves prevent from being defrauded, or knowing more about these scams, how can they find us?
tvhfinancial.ca is the biggest thing. Obviously, any of our platforms we respond to. I will always leave the phone number up to you, Jim, because I don't call us.
647-727-4668. You can also email us, financial@tvhgroup.ca. And as Ryan mentioned, you can find us on our website, tvhfinancial.ca, tvhgroup.ca, or all the social media platforms. So, Ryan, I think that's another one in the books. And I'd like to thank everyone who's watching us live and listening to us live, and also recorded. And can't wait for our next episode. So thanks, everyone.
Talk about fraud, talk about taxes. We might talk about taxes soon. So
all right. All right.
So
sounds
listen
good.
In. All right.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Alrighty. I'm uploaded.